I will kick us off. And I love that I'm April O'Neil for this version too. Hello, Starseeds, and welcome to this episode of Truth, Beauty, Freedom, and Love podcast. And on today's Cosmic Conversation, I have my beautiful friend Aarti here, and we are going to talk through stories. Well, we're not going to have a very structured way of doing things. We're going to go where the mood takes us, but we're going to start off with our usual introduction, which is how we first met. And I first met Aarti when I was still working like a corporate gig, a regular 9-to-5 job as a project manager, a digital project manager. It's ironic because my sister's here this weekend as well, and she's a developer. She's a back-end developer. She makes video games. So that's all tied together in terms of my Dragon Warrior saga, which I'm creating. And Aarti's actually the inspiration behind one of the main characters. And it's also based on her astrology stack as well as our relationship with each other. And so in terms of how we first met, I met Aarti. She actually hired me at the hospital.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, you were the one, I remember I was running late for my interview and I was like messaging, being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. And you're like, it's totally cool. It's totally fine. And I wasn't really that late regardless, but I got hired, obviously, after that interview. It doesn't matter that I showed up late or how I perceived as being late. And then working there, I worked on BANT, which was a diabetes application for like 2.5 years, I feel like. That was, it was a bit of time, but you've been there much longer. Yes. And you're in charge. I'll let you go into your introduction as well in terms of what you want to divulge. But Aarti's like a people person in terms of being able to recognize, I think, vibrations in people on a deeper level. And so I think even as we were working in a very structured healthcare setting, we were just discussing this before we recorded it, that are you a magical being? Are you someone who sees beyond what is actually right in front of you? Do you see people for more than this particular role that they're playing right now in this particular structure, and the selves that are beyond that and the stories that are beyond that? And so I think that this podcast is about sharing those unique stories that are personal to us in a way that will be presented so that others can be inspired by it, and all of that good stuff, and spreading truth and beauty and freedom and love wherever you go, that kind of stuff. And so without further ado, I would like you, Aarti, to give your introduction, your lovely introduction, as well as your astro stack, which I consider as your sun, your moon, and your rising signs.
All right. Thank you for that. I had no recollection of interviewing you, but I guess it does make sense.
You're like the welcome.
Oh, I love
the welcome.
Great.
The
opening ceremony.
Exactly. Yeah. Hello. Come into this room. This is where your interview is going to be taking place.
Okay.
And you're like, yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm Aarti, and my astrology stack is Sun and Rising in Gemini, and my Moon is in Cancer, and I also have a Gemini stellium in the 12th house. As Rachel mentioned,
12th house stuff.
It's why we're in hospitals.
Yes.
And
That's
true. Yeah. So, my day job career was in systems and hospital research tech. I ran a startup for a while. I was a different type of person for a certain number of years, and then I had this health crisis. A chunk of my hair fell out one day in the shower, just a handful. It's all grown back.
It's like beautiful.
Thank you.
Leo seasons.
Yeah, but I thought, when you had asked about stories and all the millions of stories that come to mind, but for me it's about sort of how this started, right? The person I was prior to getting into the shower one fine day and just doing this and having a handful of hair come out, the shock of that, the grief. It took me 5-6 years, I think, to actually heal from that. And the condition was called alopecia. It's actually an autoimmune condition. And
Is that caused? Did you have like a trigger? Or was it kind of just like this one day?
It was just one day. I had started to like dip my toe into spirituality. I think I went to like a tantra meetup, and I did like a soul code thing, and I realized I was a lot sadder in life than I actually allowed myself to be. And then I washed my hair one day and like it came out, and then it was like 3 years of like deep I wouldn't say isolation, but like deep hermitude, while I tried to conceptualize what healing would be for me. I went through like very intense periods of like absolute hermitude. I didn't watch a movie. I didn't go out with friends. My social activity was my weekly acupuncture.
How old were you?
This was the year after this was Saturn return, so I would have been 30.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
29, 30. And like, you know, if you think about where like the average woman is in that time, like you know, you're like trying to date, you want to like settle and do all of these things. And here I was being like, every time I combed my hair, I would have an existential crisis for 3.5 years. You know, it was, yeah.
Hair is a big deal with, I don't think people realize, like for women, and it's wonderful. We're talking about this in Leo season, right? And you're made and you're prone in terms of beauty. And I wanted to have these conversations about beauty to elevate beauty. Like I'm a Venetian person, and so but in terms of hair, like I feel you when it comes to someone might say that you're beautiful regardless. So
yeah, I mean, your hair say a lot of things, right? Like I think and I think this was part of how I understood what you're trying to get out of out of a conversation like this, right? Like the way I understand it, and I guess because of this hair thing, I'll use hair as an analogy. To me, when you desire like love and liberation, you actually braid beauty, truth, and freedom. Like they aren't like, it is like a braid. Like
that's very, and when you like ritualize, because my sister braids my hair, right? So that practice has more in it more than the action. Yes. It's the intention. Yeah, I love that.
And like the interesting thing is we can imagine, or a lot of us experience the material aspects of all these things, right? Like I feel free because I don't know, I broke up with a shit partner. Yeah. I have a better job now. So we have these in moments, right? Or we saw something really inspiring and suddenly there's a burst of it. The work, I think, of like especially mine, like in what I understand as aspects of the priestess path that I walk, is that we're trying to build the inner chemistry, the alchemy, the physics, the capacity, like an engine, like a capacitor, right? Like the capacity to actually enliven and like reach the deeper levels and layers of it. And it's interesting, right? Because we all want to share our awesome learning and share our awesome experiences, but the deepest truths, and this is a point of great beauty, the deepest truths are ineffable. At least to me, they are these indescribable things where all you can do is laugh and cry and just say yeah and breathe, right? And there's the liberation of breath that stems like from the lower back part of your lungs, where you are in these waves, in these braids of realized beauty, and you're in between all of these worlds, and yet you just are. Yeah. And so all of this, I think, the roots of it came when I did nothing in my life and just like cried and combed my hair.
Oh my gosh, the greatest truths come from being by yourself and like just
and sitting in your pain sometimes and not distracting from it. And so I've had my life turned upside down multiple times. And you know, there's I wanted to say this because I use a lot of like sound frequency words, as you know. Yeah. But
it's related to our powers.
It is. And there's this myth of positive thinking.
Oh yes. Oh, that's
right. And I think and it's this, it is beautiful, and it's not like it's wrong, and there is an insight to it, but I don't think positive thinking is truth. There's a difference between something that is an insight that comes from discovery and one of those ineffable, resonant, universal truths that exists in our cells, and like your cells and my cells, right? And so for me, in my path, there had to come this place where I accepted the hell I had created in my life, repeatedly, to figure out with inquiry and curiosity and play, and all this joyful stuff came later, but for in the darker bits, to actually move forth so that I could accept what I was. I didn't pretend, I didn't craft, you know, like obviously I wore like a scarf, but you know, as we work through levels of shame, embarrassment, discomfort, feeling disgusting, unloved. I remember once, like, I think my hair had just fallen out, and I had watched a video on authentic relating. And part of this, as a self-learning activity, was you go to the bathroom, you light a candle or whatever, and you like look at yourself, you hold your own eye gaze, and you say, I love myself more than anything. I did that. I didn't last 2 seconds. It was like, I didn't actually throw up, but I gagged. Because I couldn't lie to myself.
Oh, wow.
Because it felt like an utter lie. So the beauty in this is not skin beauty. It is coming to this crystalline clarity of like who we are and all this exquisite oneness beauty stuff. And then all of the traps, the density, the heaviness, which are part, they're here, like at least
lessons.
They're lessons, they're medicines, they're I'm sorry to swear, but they're fucking horrible.
Oh gosh, swearing is amazing.
Yeah, they're heart-wrenching. A lot of people don't survive it, right? Like a lot of people like choose to end their lives. A lot of people choose to escape with like, you know, with drugs, with alcohol. And I don't like drugs and alcohol are not part of my life, but I actually have now so much compassion for people who do it. Not because I don't, but it's more because I understand the temptation. I understand wanting to change your chemistry, right? Your inner chemistry with something so that you do not feel this horrible thing. Yes. So I get that. And there's like an acceptance that comes with it. Yeah. So for me, the story of braiding, sitting with my hair, sitting with the unknowability, like to me, epic beauty is the things that we cannot know, that for no reason of like, if you're standing by a rose bush, there's like 15 blossoming roses, but there is one. There's this frequency, a fragrance of one that's the one you choose to smell. And it's not like the other roses are less important or less beautiful.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, so there's a resonance. And so to me, like part of like this whole, you know, quantum priestess, quantum physics type of character that's even coming out in the character of Aria in the storyline is this person who is able to work with frequential harmony, frequential disharmony, what is and is not in resonance. And so it really flips the idea of good, bad, beautiful, ugly, truth, lie. Yeah. And like the work is not to transcend it, the work is to accept it so that our perspective shifts and we can hold utter ugliness and beauty at the same time, learn from both and weave a new story.
Oh yes. That's the alchemy of all of it, right?
And then we can be in the speech of our truth.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, just like a truth drop like that. You're like in the moment. I was just like enthralled for a moment there. I'm like, you go, girl, you go. Like you channel that through. It's funny because before you came over, I was doing this solar feminine astrology retreat kind of thing. I shouldn't call it a retreat. I've been trying not to use that word. Warriors do not retreat. And it's a matter of not going, you can go inward without retreating, in stepping forward into yourself.
Warriors restoration.
Exactly. Yes. Or a reconnection moment. And there's power in words, even at that very simple level. And I've just been trying to do a better job of catching myself for things like that. And so I think you just hit so many things on. I'm like, where? I know exactly. And so I'm like, okay, so like, where do I want to take this? There's so many directions that we can go. First of all, I want to know how the story of your hair falling out resolved itself, because you obviously have beautiful hair right now. So,
oh, thanks.
So how did that? You went through the underworld. To me.
Yeah, and there for some years,
and then you came out the other side.
Yeah.
And so how did you manage to find your path out?
I didn't. I can't. You know, it's this funny thing where I think the part of our mind, like for each of us, you know, we have a masculine and a feminine, and
Yes.
the masculine wants to fix things.
Yes.
And it's very nurtured in our world, the masculine side. Like, you have a job, you have goals and like key performance indicators, and
Oh yes, your KPIs,
Like,
yeah,
your
totally.
KPIs.
Yep.
You like, we don't want to just like live like sloths, right? Like, just
I hope not.
I mean,
well,
I do. So I do. My power
depends on
animal
how you
is a
define
sloth.
slob, though. There you go.
But like, it's interesting, right? So this whole like reclamation of the feminine, regardless of the gender, is actually to me reclamation of where we rest in the mystery, in the unknowability, where we have tea with chaos, confusion, and unknowability.
I love that.
So part of the character, and can I talk about?
Oh yes, you
Okay.
can. Yes, this is also a way to promote the book. So, you know, generate
I'm so-
hype,
Yes.
so to speak, because they are the true beauty in comic books, which I have read since I was a little girl, is the fact that it is rooted in reality. And if we can believe enough, we can bridge the gap between our imagination and what we tactically have.
Mhm.
And so that this book is supposed to be magic. And so it's a matter of having everyone believe with us a dream. And if we can all resonate, you know, we can make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess on that point, I'll say this. When you sent us the character profiles, so every character had to develop their own character.
Yes.
Well, she
I gave you guys
developed it.
homework. Yes.
Yes,
I
so-
had, well, actually, I should clarify. The book was already written.
Yes, yes.
So you have your own side quests, and there's gaps, there's room, but there are already points that I already, in my own understanding, understanding, put to paper. But I wanted you to confirm it for me. It's kind of like what astrology does for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Exactly.
whenever when I read people's charts now, I find I'm like, wow. It
The
just
story of you.
confirms
Yeah.
what I already. So I knew your chart to some degree.
Yes, yes.
So there were already things that I already knew about your character that would come through.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
I guess I'll start with this. One of the things I started with was trying to understand autoimmune conditions, because that's what it was. So in the simplest of terms, your body is attacking itself, right? Like, that's how we would energetically and spiritually understand the autoimmune system. This is everything from self-hatred, self-doubt, self-sabotage patterns, which, you know, are so commonplace. It's like, there's so many Instagram memes on the imposter syndrome in a way that it's so normalized now.
Yeah.
And so I really had to sit with where I was attacking myself. And for me, it was, I guess, my desire to be someone, do something, my desire for how I understood power and being seen in the world was attacking who I actually was. In a way, it was attacking my feminine, which speaks to the root of Aria's character, which is the desperate desire to belong, because she sees the world and she sees all of her teammates as those who are so different than her, so she could not possibly belong. She has the wound of either or. Either I can be someone else and get along, or I have to be a hermit. She is learning, and as am I, how to actually weave the both and how to be both who I am and also allow everyone to be who they are and just have the group be what it organically is, without needing to desperately contrive situations or feelings that may seem like, you know, something out of the Friends TV show where, oh, all of these people talk like this and I'm not talking like that, and
how things should
be,
Yeah.
and oh, they're talking about a thing, but I haven't seen that show, so I'm just gonna sit here. So
Oh my gosh,
this is where
you just explained a scenario that I've been in.
right, and like, this is the beauty of all our stories is we're all rooted into the same consciousness. These are world stories.
Oh yes.
Right? So the resonance of comic books is because, like, I may not shoot webs from my fingers, but we all feel the weight of power and responsibility. We all feel the weight of being crushed. For those who don't know, this is the famous thing of Spider-Man, right? Like, we all have these archetypical stories that we struggle with in our own lives. You know, like, a really surprising one for me that's popular is Captain America, who has nothing in common with me. I am neither American nor
love
man.
Captain America.
Love Captain America.
Yeah.
Because he's literally a person out of time, right? He has a he has traditional ideologies. Of course, I would choose
that part of him.
Because that's
your
the
favorite part. Yeah.
Yes, because that's the part that resonates with me. So, like,
you are my Sailor Pluto.
Sailor Pluto. So I haven't seen Sailor Moon.
But you
so
literally
I've
look
been
like her
learning.
right now. I'm gonna show.
With my style.
I will edit this so that I have like her
Sailor
show
Moon.
up, and then you'll see that you looked like the green hair, and you're wearing green, and so
yeah. So back to your question,
Yes.
I think a big part of how and like healing does not occur in a linear way as much as we want it
Oh
to.
my gosh! Yeah.
My hair grew. Like it was three or four times. I would have these patches, like big bald patches, right in the front, the back, the sides, and every time it was slightly less earth-shattering and devastating.
Okay.
And every time I learned a different layer of how to actually be okay to not know. So for me, hair, and I think in Aria's character, I really wanted her being to be expressed with a sense of voidness. And this isn't void from emptiness, but I think the last part of me healing my hair was to understand the my relationship between like the hair is like a continual braid of the void, right? Like, and that's not true for everyone. It was just part of my acceptance. The more I accepted the hair that grew and the hair that fell, the more I came to a place of neutrality that hair grows and falls. And like certain weird things, right? Like I didn't know this, and it's a bit macabre, but when you die, your corpse actually, the cells keep growing hair for 3 weeks after.
Yeah, and your nails as well.
And your nails as well.
Yeah.
So like it was unfathomable to me that when I was in my mid-30s, why wasn't my hair growing? A corpse's hair grows. Like how? Like do I have to die for my hair?
Oh my goodness, it's
like,
so interesting to me. You're so 12th house. And that's where your mind goes. It's like, oh,
that
okay,
is
like
where my mind
how
goes.
come? How come a corpse grows and mine doesn't?
Well, I was trying to. I think it was a potent question.
Yes.
Because
that is a potent question.
Because through this inquiry, we get to see like cells function in the way that cells function, right? Like that's just what the livers don't one day be like, I'm just going to be a heart today. The cell of my liver will always just be a liver until I
we need those cells to be liver cells.
Exactly. So if something is naturally occurring in the human body, even in the cells of a corpse, then I am actually unconsciously maybe I'm doing something to prevent natural vibrance and growth. That is true for depression, exhaustion. This is where I got to see not what my self-sabotage patterns were. That is a good and important question, but why they exist. What is their story? When you actually sit and have tea with them or drink something with them.
There it is.
For me, that was being in communion, no longer fighting something, no longer fighting lack, fighting discomfort, fighting unknowability, chaos, rage, grief, abandonment.
Fighting against all of that, right?
We need to at some point in time, maybe, but for me, in the pits of where I was, I actually had to come into I had to come into communion with them to be like, what is your story? And are my actions, beliefs, choices, conscious and unconscious, fueling that? Or can I break this and maybe choose a different dynamic? And that is terrifying because I don't know what another dynamic is. I don't know what it is to be like, to wake up in the morning with this like hunk of a guy who I absolutely love and to be an amazing surrender. And I've never had that experience, right? So like we have to learn through our inquiry, through our imagining, and try and, well, we don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. That was my path.
Yes.
And so when I think I reached that place of no longer fighting my body, I think that's when the autoimmune, what do you call it? Like the physical manifestation of my spiritual problem, which was the autoimmune condition in hair, a lot of that just dissipated. And I haven't gone to the doctor recently. I don't think there's a test for when an autoimmune leaves.
No.
I don't know.
But I look at also like your immune system is kind of like the warrior class of your body, if you think about it. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, even when I approached you about being a dragon warrior, I think that I felt a tiny bit of resistance from you in terms of warrior. Yes. Right. Yeah. And that idea, and even the concept of like leadership and any of that very militarized aspect of things.
Yes.
Now, I have a perspective of warrior just also from my own ancestral background in certain terms of like my like my uncle is like a championship boxer, and in like the Philippines there is a level of like tribal like warrior spirit, you know, like island, like, you know, like you have each other's backs. And so I had a different concept in terms of what warrior means, and in terms of dragon warriors in the book, we're paired with a dragon, and dragons symbolically represent power. So I just wanted to get your perspective on why you felt that. I don't feel that resistance from you anymore at all.
I'm so
you stepped into it, but it just explained to me like how, like why perhaps that happened.
So I think, you know, there's I've never seen myself as so this is where I think the things like truth can be a bit confusing.
Oh yes.
Right?
Oh totally.
Because what happens is like you and I both love comics, right? So I loved the early MCU, like maybe the first 4 phases. I don't know about it now, but you know, whatever. Like I'm
Blue Beetle, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. But in our current matrix that we have inherited, there's a certain idea of what a warrior is, right? Yes. And this is like, even in its healed form, it's sort of pure masculine energy. And you just actually said something where, to you, warriors don't retreat. For me, as a warrior, retreat is actually like, there's a lot of interesting stuff encoded in the words that we use, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
totally.
So it's like, you know, we are divine beings of consciousness here to record what the physical finite experience is. That is one of the ways I understand us as divine beings here. We are kind of recording, this hurts, this is tasty, this is boring, right? Like we in the beauty of 3D is you actually get to experience that which you create. A seventh dimensional being, for example, if you have an understanding of dimensions, they can create, but they don't have the sensory wiring that we do. They don't experience that which we create. So if I make life miserable for you, we will both actually have this dance of miserableness.
Yes.
And that is, while unpreferable, that is the specificity of 3-dimensional reality. So as divine infinite beings, we are recording, we are learning to chord ourselves and remembering all of, you know, aspects of this experience. So to me, retreating is to treat ourselves in a way where we can actually refine. We all had an idea, we had a battle plan, and we have an idea of who we were and what we'll do. And then we went somewhere and we were like, dang, this is not that. And so we retreat into ourselves, we treat ourselves, and we kind of give ourselves that chance to go within, because as within, so without, to go within and be like, what is the solution consciousness here? How should we change this dynamic? Otherwise, technically, the same battle plan that we used yesterday would be, you know, we just keep doing it again and again. And I love that you have a very different understanding of retreat.
Yes,
and so to answer your question, my understanding of a warrior isn't, so like my character doesn't have weapons. Yeah. And I was like,
and no armor.
And
really.
No armor.
No
right?
weapons.
So like, this is not how we typically understand a warrior. Yeah. So then I had to craft, because of how, you know, the storyline and the just what the environment is, we had to work together. And I was like, is my hair open? Is it braided? Because obviously, like, I had to think about what my hair was doing. But even this notion of, can I be a warrior and not have armor? Is that even allowed? You know? And so it is now.
Allowed.
So now I feel like I belong. But my initial resistance was that, because again, and this I think ties into like beauty and truth, and this is very common in women's relationships with each other, right? Like, I have this idea of, I don't know what love might be, or beauty might be, or what I'm looking for in
you're
a
talking
partner.
About very
and like, this is everyday stuff.
Yes,
like, this doesn't have to be spiritual. This could be material. It could be spiritual. But it's this thing, there's a real beauty in me having a definition of what retreating means for me and what retreating means for you. And there is a liberation in allowing your definition to coexist alongside mine. And this is a very different way I have come to learn acceptance of diversity. We keep, in the spiritual community, it's very common to be like, I want to find like-minded people. personally, I'm not like, you and I are not like-minded.
Oh,
I feel you and I are like-hearted.
Oh,
we create from certain places. It looks, you act and you do a lot of things that aren't in my world. The same is true. Yeah, and we don't actually see or hang out with each other a lot. But when we do, there's a natural coherence. And I think the friendship, like, we didn't see or speak to each other for like 2.5 years.
That's true. And oh my gosh, I remember I was telling Kevin this. It was like at a tribe space.
Yes,
and
we
were there randomly. Yeah, and
no
and then just screamed and just like.
So to me, that's when
that was like, so. And then I didn't know where you stood on a lot of things, and I didn't
ideologies and then the world was in a difficult time, and I think we both made unpopular choices for the collective consciousness. But without knowing, and we don't actually live physically in the city, we don't live that far away from each other, but we just didn't see each other for 2.5 years.
True. Yeah.
But like, I think that's sort of this, to my earlier point of resonance, right? Like when you actually work from the electromagnetic field of the heart, the chording, the resonance, the frequency just kind of naturally and effortlessly sort of magically works. There's no, I should call this person, that's beautiful too, but this is working from a much more different place. And I think for me, the healing around belonging comes from in my own magnetics, changing my center of gravity from my head to my heart, learning how to use the instrument that is my heart, the technology, like the quantum heart drive, and the increased capacity that comes when we attune and all of this stuff. And then from that place, there's almost like a guitarist strumming in liberation, right? In absolute freedom from this place of inspiration. And then the people who like that music just come. Just are drawn, which is I think what happened at that location, at that like random yoga studio that none of us actually go to.
It's true.
We went that one time and like we just didn't go back. I think
we went because I think it was a
common friend.
Common friend as a favor to like be part, like, because I mean, I think you and I share the same idea now in terms of like being careful about where you place your energies. That's important. And so I think thinking back on it, maybe I wouldn't have gone, but hey, who knows? But regardless, something called me to going that moment. And so we reconnected. And so in real life, sparks flew. And I mean, I got into astrology as a result of my own waking up. And so, and my decision to, I guess, have sovereignty over my body was not necessarily related to, let's say, me waking up to the way that this matrix works. But when I did wake up, and this is why I was told to write my book. I was told, because Dragon Warriors was a book I wrote when I was 14 in 1999. So before the two towers fell, before Isis's name was desecrated throughout the world, and she is the queen in our book. She is our head honcho, our Queen Isis. She gives us our orders. She loves riddles and puzzles and all that kind of good stuff. So we are her warriors, and we also guard portals. We guard portals between the multiverses, because dragons also traverse those realms. So that is also, being a guardian is also the aspect of the warrior that I think should be emphasized. Because with every kind of, I guess, terminology, you have a shadow side to things as well, right? There's a duality to things too. So to your point about being able to hold both sides in your heart at the same time and accept both simultaneously is not something that can be done in a mental space. And it's very difficult, because you will logically try to resolve it where it can just be in your heart.
And I think the beauty of certain truths that actually lead to liberation is when you're complete with logic. Like, logic can take you so far. And like, logic is a great tool when you're trying to like sort out duality, right? But after a point, the logical mind comes to its natural surrender into the void, into the heart space, into the known and the unknown. And to your point of warriors, like, I think from like, I heard this, I think it was from the Cherokee First Nation. There's this Native American quote that says, soldiers fight what's in front of them. Warriors protect what is behind them. And like, if you think about that from an energetics perspective, front of the body being the masculine, back of the body being the feminine.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's this notion if you're being attacked, if I plunge my body in front of yours, right? Like I'm protecting what is behind me. I'm taking the hit.
Yeah.
So with our masculine and with masculine paradigms that are, you know, really shaking in the current crumbling matrix, and rebirthing.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Right? But like we're doing that in ourselves as well.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think this notion of and so anyway, all of this to say, I had to honor my authentic choice to have a conversation with you about not wearing armor and having this other mechanism.
Yes.
Right? So like all of that is because that is my everyday. That is a natural part of my being. And I so appreciate in this, you know, we're early on in this process with the book, I think that I'm in, but how much you're weaving so many of our, I'd imagine what you're doing with me, you're doing with everyone.
Because that's how comic books were made in the first place, Aarti.
Right,
You know what I mean? Because they're like, the reason why we resonate with certain characters is because at the heart of it, that creator built it based on like an archetype, a dream, and we get to live, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like all of those little nuances in that character sheet, be like, you know, like, do you have a slang? Is there like little nuances to like, because when you think of it as a comic book as opposed to just a book as well, how is that going to be drawn?
Yes.
Visually, right? And this is very Taurus-y right now in terms of art, because it's about, and this is why I love anime and manga and all that. It's like how you express, and we're going to be able to, so we're going to be able to show in comic books all of those fun, ineffable things. Like, what does time travel look like?
Yeah.
Right? What does jumping through a portal really look like?
Yeah.
And we can imagine it. And then in doing that, perhaps we can figure out how to actually do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's because we'll have a visual way of like mind creating it too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, so I think that takes care of this. We covered you so good. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh.
I'm a Gemini.
I know. Yeah, talking, just like going out, channeling through whatever comes. And so this is going to be the first of many conversations, of course, as the book gets up and running. I'm going to be having certain crowdfunding things set up as well. So this will all be a part of helping to promote that as well. Aarti, is there anything you want to promote about yourself in terms of like links or any writing that you do? Because I can include all of that.
Ooh, that's amazing. Well, I am somewhat of a budding writer.
Yeah, you're a writer. Come on, you've gotten paid for writing. When you get paid for so there we go. You can say Any links to where people can find your writing?
Yeah, I'm actually wanted to take this opportunity to give a bit of a shout out to the Substack community, which I think you're a part of as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Totally. I just got this awesome email from them today, and it's all about finding a good place on the internet to read, right?
Yes.
From all over the world. And you know, I just want to be careful. Like, good doesn't mean like we will read everything that we agree with, but like Substack's done a lot of interesting things around actually I would say bringing a little bit of slowness and sensuality back into the written word, as well as video content. Like, I think you and I mostly do video. I've done some writing on it. So I have a Substack. It's called Connect the Dots.
I like that.
So it's, I think, connectthedots.com/Substack. I can send you the link.
Yes, please send me the link, because I will include it. And I'll do like a little like down below with my fun movie magic. So follow that.
Yeah, and I just also big thanks to you and the interview.
April O'Neil, you know, for Channel 6 News, and ultimately the fact that the fact that we are truly living in a comic book video game sort of framework. And I feel like the more that we realize and are empowered by our own stories and our ability to weave our own stories, the better.
Yeah, this is the best role-playing game you would ever play.
Yes, it's a huge LARP. This whole thing is a LARP. Life LARP.
And like, there's a terror about this, right? Like, you are the creator of your storyline, your video game, your arc. So if you wake up and your life is awful and you're around horrible people and you hate your job. You know, it's a big death of the ego to be like, why am I creating this? And like, it's not something that our mind can identify and fix. This is not that. This isn't like a suturing of a wound.
Yeah.
So I think we have the help of our collective stories, right?
That's right.
And they all weave in and they are each other's stories. I just asked you because of how you're dressed in April, who your favorite TMNT.
Yes, actually that's a great way to end this.
Yes,
because you can tell a lot from that. Right. So my favorite Ninja Turtle was Leonardo, who is the leader.
And a big part of your book, when you described your character to me, was you coming into acceptance that you can actually lead this group of 7 powerful women who have very different powers.
Yes.
And how your definition of leadership would just totally won me over, and maybe that should be its own podcast.
Yeah,
she refined leadership, leading from a way that was authentic to you, and that's how you explained it to me.
So it's more of like being a conductor and more of truly seeing my team for who they are when they themselves sometimes don't see it fully for themselves, or seeing their strengths in a clarity so that I can place them in the right way, so that when we have like battle strategy and we're going in to rescue the Knights of the Sun, everyone has their roles and their positions, and you're going to heal them along with the other girl who's going to be healing them from another perspective. But everyone has what they are meant to do, so that it's not a matter of me saying, no, you have to do this and you're in this position and you're in that. And like, it's this very militant way. It's more from a big sister perspective. I'm here for you to be your best. And so if perhaps you're doing something and it's not at your best, it'll just be in a way to encourage you to do so.
Yeah, and there are so many different aspects of a feminine yin Shakti leadership, right?
Yes,
and like different scenarios require something different. Sometimes, and like I love that that's how your style is, because then each of the characters can relax into who they're into, who they actually are. So like that flows really well. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity as well.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being on the show. Okay, so I think that I will wrap this podcast with that. That was a lovely little story and a way to end it. Jeez. So I hope that you enjoyed this particular episode of Truth, Freedom, Beauty, and Love. I totally messed up the order of that, but I'm going to keep it. I don't even care. All of those themes are important, but of course, the main one, the greatest of all these, is love, of course. And so until next time, Starseeds, wherever you reside in the cosmos, until next time, bye.